Hey friends, after using ChatGPT for my Playwright scripting, I came to the conclusion that ChatGPT is probably not the best tool for the job because you have to provide a very long and custom prompt and also paste a lot of source code into your prompt to get reasonable good results. But what if we use a tool that is actually made for coding like GitHub Copilot? Well, let's find out in this video how Copilot helps with Playwright scripting. Let's go. Here I have a very simple application that only includes a button, and when I click this button a couple of times, this sad raccoon image will be shown. And as I've shown you in a previous video, to generate a Playwright test case using an LLM, you have to provide quite a lot of information. You have to tell the AI what it should be. So I went for an expert in TypeScript and Playwright end-to-end testing. Then you have to provide a lot of rules of what it should and shouldn't do. And for my quick demo application, I also provided all the HTML so that ChatGPT could figure out and had something to work with. Only to close my prompt then with the actual task. Navigate to localhost, click a button, check that this text is visible on the page and that there's a raccoon image. And while the generated code was pretty good, so it followed Playwright best practices, it figured out the correct accessible names. So overall, this was good code. But obviously, this isn't a great workflow, and I would have been probably way quicker just using Playwright Codegen. Let's see how GitHub Copilot helps. In my VS Code, I have here on the right side an empty example spec.ts file. Here's a terminal to run my Playwright tests. And here on the left side, we already have Copilot Chat. If you haven't used Copilot Chat, you can open it here in the top menu by clicking Open Chat. Copilot Chat works similar to how ChatGPT or Claude works, so you can go in here, you can ask your questions, but the big difference is that Copilot Chat has access to the files in the current project. So in this case, Copilot knows that I'm looking at my empty example spec.ts, and we can go in here and ask, what are my tests doing? And it's now able to understand that this is an empty test file. And it is. There are currently no tests defined in your example spec.ts. Very well, Copilot. So let's fill this spec file with life. And first of all, I will clear our current session, and now we'll paste the instructions of our Playwright test case. So the test case should navigate to localhost 8080, and I have an index HTML that is served there. So it's inside of this project. We have here app index HTML. It's the same HTML that I inlined into my ChatGPT prompt to get good results. Luckily, we don't have to do this when we use Copilot. Because we use Copilot Chat, we can now go into our chat prompt here and we can say, write a Playwright test for, and then we can type hash, and we want to go for index HTML, and this will provide this file as context to our LLM session. So let's see what we got. Here we go. Here we see that it's using two files. It's using example spec.ts and the index HTML as references. And here we now have a Playwright test case. Let's see. So we click the increase button. So this locator isn't great, but because we provided the HTML, Copilot was smart enough to discover this test ID. And it also discovered that we have here an H1, which was the text. And here we have the alt text. And this is all coming from the HTML that we provided. Let's check if our test case works. So we can now apply this to our empty test case. Here we go. And let's head over to the terminal and say npx playwright tests. Here we go. Let's see. Fingers crossed. Here we go. We just generated a working test case with GitHub Copilot. And that's pretty cool, but honestly, I think we can do a little bit better because I'm not very happy with these locators, and I also don't want to reach for the H1 here. So I would like to follow Playwright best practices. So how could we do this? Of course, we could now start a conversation with the LLM and tell it that we don't want to use the locator function, that we don't want to use CSS locators. But ideally, GitHub Copilot knows what things to avoid. So let's clear this chat again, and let's start from scratch. So we could now reuse this and extend this prompt to tell Copilot what it should be and what it should do. So we could add, you are an expert, and you should use this, and you shouldn't use that. But that's rather cumbersome. And luckily, there's a new Copilot setting that will help us to add custom instructions. So you see here in my workspace settings that I have a few preview features enabled. So first of all, here's code generation use instruction files. So whenever you use Copilot in a project, you can place a Copilot instructions MD in the GitHub directory, and then this will extend your conversations with Copilot. Similarly, there's also the code generation instructions setting that you can edit in your settings JSON. This allows you to add custom prompts right in JSON format, and you can also provide your own custom instructions to Copilot conversations. And because I like to use experimental stuff, so let's go in here, and you already see that I have here my own custom instructions, which should be located at Copilot instructions. Here we go. And now when we look at all the files in the project, so let's close the node modules, let's close that. We have here a Copilot instructions file that is currently empty, but I want to fill it with life. So here we have the instructions that we already have seen at the beginning of the video. You're an expert in TypeScript. You should use these locators. You shouldn't use timeouts. So we're telling Copilot to be overall an expert in Playwright and write high quality Playwright code. So let's see what happens now. Let's go back to our example spec file. Let's clean that up. And now that we have our custom instructions, we can again say we want to work with the index.html here. We still only include some instructions of what our Playwright script should do, but when we now press enter, you see that it's now using the index.html file, but also our Copilot instructions. And when we now look at the results, well, this looks way better than what we had before. This script now uses the recommended Playwright locators, it extracts variables, it's overall fairly nicely to read. So I would say this is a good Playwright script. Now it only has to work, so let's apply this one here to our example spec.ts file, and let's run this test case again. Let's see, running 3 tests, and here we go. Success. But will I now use AI to generate these kind of tests? Let me tell you, I probably will not. Because when I want to use an LLM or GitHub Copilot, I have to be very explicit of what I want to do. And there are high chances that I have to have a conversation with the AI telling it what I'm expecting. In these simple cases, I'm way quicker just clicking around on the website and using Playwright Codegen. But let's look at a more complex example. We are here in the Checkly docs where we explain how you can use Playwright for synthetic monitoring, and I would like to create a Playwright test that tests this YouTube section here. Our docs are built with the Hugo static site generator, and this data here is coming directly from YouTube. So I really want to ensure that there are 3 YouTube links and a link to a YouTube playlist here available in our docs. And this is a test case that I have to write myself because when you look at the codegen options, there's only assert visibility, assert text, assert value, and assert snapshot. So you really have to write some code for this one. Let's see if Copilot succeeds here too. We're here in a different repository, namely the Checkly docs, but I have a similar setup. So I have also here my custom VS Code settings that load the Copilot instructions. And here we have it for better Playwright code output. And then again, we have here an empty example spec.ts file that we would like to fill with some life. If you wanted to, you could now press Command I while being in your editor window, but I must say that I prefer the Copilot Chat window because there's just more space for some code conversations. So let's go there. In our new Playwright test, we want to navigate to /learn/playwright. We want to check if there's a YouTube container on the page. We want to check if the container includes 3 links and if there's also a link to a YouTube playlist. And to provide as much context as possible, we're also passing an index file where the YouTube videos are defined and the template that is called YouTube Gallery, which we have here in Hugo syntax. All right, generating some code. Let's see what we have. So Copilot discovered that there is a test ID and used the proper locator. So this is great. Then it used the locator with a CSS locator. I don't like that very much. It's not checking for proper accessible name. And then we have here a link that figured out that, well, there's a number in between, and it kind of created a good accessible name to match the link to YouTube, which we have here. So this is actually pretty cool. But it's time to have a conversation. Can you use get by role instead of locator? Let's see. All right, let's have a look. We have now 3 recommended locators, so this looks good. It was also able to parse the correct names, so we should also have here watch on YouTube, so this is cool. But now we lost checking for the proper links to YouTube. Can you check if the links link to YouTube correctly? Let's see. All right. We now have additional to have attribute checks, and these look pretty okay to me. Let's add this test case to our spec file. Here we go. And let's see if it works. npx playwright test. Here we go, running 3 tests and bottoms. Let's see what's wrong. So here we go. All 3 tests failed and we have a strict mode violation. But what's Playwright strict mode? When you use web-first assertions like to have attribute, Playwright will check if this locator, so this one here, get by role link, is really only matching one element to check the attribute for this one element. If there are multiple elements matching this one locator, it will throw a strict mode violation. Let's see if we can convince Copilot to fix this error. To have attribute is throwing a strict mode violation. Can you iterate over the links instead? All right, let's see. Now we have here a good old for loop. Let's go quick and dirty. Remove everything here, place this one, and now let's see if this now succeeds. Here we go. Sweet. We could still refactor this a little bit because I don't like the await statement here, and probably this 3 should go into a proper variable. But I think for now, you don't need to watch me talking to a robot, and I think this is good enough for now. So what do I think about generating Playwright tests using Copilot? So I didn't show it, but Copilot is great for code refactorings. If you generated some code using Playwright Codegen and want to transform it into a page object model, Copilot is wonderful for that. And similarly, like I showed you in the first test case here in this video, Copilot is also great at generating test code for very simple stuff. But if your test case is so simple, I question a little bit the usage of AI for that, because generating a test case using Playwright Codegen is very quickly done. But if you want to really use AI and Copilot for your Playwright scripting, make sure to always define a custom role. In this video, I showed you the "You are an expert in TypeScript front-end development and Playwright end-to-end testing" prompt. Define what Copilot should generate and what it should avoid. This will improve the quality of your generated Playwright code tremendously. Trust me. And if you prompt your test case instructions, be very clear and very descriptive. In this video, it looked like I just pasted in some instructions, but actually I tested all the prompts beforehand, and it took me quite a while to come up with instructions that Copilot could work with. And even if it looks like the AI understood your prompt, always keep in mind that generated code isn't trustworthy. And we've seen this in our quick conversation about the strict mode violation. And if you now say, yeah, well, Stefan, but that wasn't so bad. I agree. But keep in mind that this here is a prepared video, and I really only showed you the happy path. I've spent multiple hours looking for examples where Copilot could succeed generating Playwright tests. And especially in JavaScript-heavy applications, the modern software stack, Copilot failed to generate Playwright tests that were close to be usable. And I think that's all right, because Copilot is a tool. It's smart, right? But it's not the driver when it comes to writing source code or your Playwright code. Because guess what? You are the driver, and you should know and understand the code that you're using and that you're writing. If you want to level up your Playwright game, you're on the right channel. Almost every week, we publish a new Playwright video explaining you the nitty-gritty details of end-to-end testing and synthetic monitoring with Playwright. And if you wonder what's up with this raccoon and what Checkly is about, Checkly allows you to take your existing Playwright end-to-end tests and run them on a schedule from around the globe for production monitoring, so that you will always be the first one to know when something is cooking in production. And with that, we made it to the end. Do you use Copilot for Playwright code generation? If you do, or if you have any comments or questions, drop them below. I promise you, I read all the comments and I love publishing follow-up videos. So now we're done. and I will see you in the next video.